Hey, happy New Year's. Welcome to Pealed Back's LiveCast Conversations with. This is episode 72. I'm your host, Gene Bernier, the coach. All right, on today's show is my good friend, Drew Stevens. Drew is a founder, storyteller, and writer who is community-centered, shares good news, and all through connecting with authentic people. His ability to connect with people on a personal and professional level has led him to create a platform for former athletes, community change makers, and everyday people to have engaging conversations about topics that matter in the world around us. He has combined his love for sports, community, family, storytelling, and meaningful conversations to establish Beyond the Legacy. Beyond the Legacy is a platform dedicated to inspiring a diverse community that embraces gratitude, family, and our continued legacy through storytelling, conversations, and collaborations, all for a great purpose. Drew, my words definitely do not do you justice, brother. Thank you so much for being on the show. Again, you are a three-peat now.
Hey, it's amazing, right? We're kicking off the year together, right? So yes. We were there together last year. I was like November 13th, the significant date we talk about. And hey, here we are.
What was that? Episode 11?
Episode 11.
Episode 11 from November 2020. Yeah. It just grateful to have you on again, because I know so much has changed in your world, and you've continued to do some great things with Beyond the Legacy and all the other great stuff that you got going on. So where's your journey taken you since November 11th, 2020?
Wow. So where do we start, right? So a lot of things changed, as I like to call the year, from 2020 Q4 into 2021 Q1. It started as rejection for me. I closed the year with rejection. I was walking away from the corporate world. I was walking away from things that didn't really serve a purpose for me anymore. And at the end of the day, I treated it more as redirection. I looked at it as redirection, not rejection. And it took time for me to understand it was redirection and not rejection. And it was truly understanding the people that were around me. It was understanding the people that were grateful for me. It was understanding the people that valued me. And it was really easy to weed those out in 2021, because when you have less to offer, when you don't have all the things to offer that you might have had in the years past, and you're vulnerable, and you're in a space of, hey, I'm finding myself, I'm going to actually reinvent myself, and I'm going to do things on my terms. Like, that was my mantra. I was like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do things on my terms. Why stick to the traditional that was working for me? And I always use this expression, we're conditioned by tradition. Like, we're always used to what people have told us to do, what our guidance counselors told us to do, what our parents tell us what to do. Just because this person's getting married, hey, like, why am I not getting married? Or why am I not starting up a family? Like, everyone is conditioned by tradition and feeling like they're chasing other people's timelines. And I said, I'm going to control my narrative. I'm going to control my story. And I'm going to take charge of what's going on in my life and do it on my terms. So
wow,
it starts there, right? So I walk away from the corporate space, and within 48 hours, no joke, within 48 hours, an NBA veteran that I know personally, I've known him for double-digit years when I worked for the NBA alumni in sports, in my sports tenure. He reached out to me, says, Drew, are you like free to do things? And his name is Gerard Mustaf. He played for the University of Maryland in college. He was an All-American, and he played for the New York Knicks and the Phoenix Suns, and he's played overseas in Europe throughout his career. And I've known him and his family forever, and I've done a story for him on beyondthelegacy.com. And he told me about this manuscript. He had a manuscript that his father left for him before his father passed away. His father passed away 11 years ago. And he said, I've been sitting on this. And he's like, I promised my father before he passed I'd publish this book. It's a story from a collection of 30 years of his father taking notes of Gerard from childhood through his teenage years, through college, through the NBA and post NBA. And he sent me the manuscript and he said, hey, like, read it. Let me know if you're interested. I read it overnight. Like, it was such a page turner. I just kept reading it. I finished it at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I reached back to him the next day. I said, I'm in. I'm all in. And within those 48 hours, here I am writing and starting this project. It's like a legacy project for his father and his family, this book. And I have the book here. It's called Becoming Pops, Taking Charge of My Family's Legacy. And it was myself and his cousin, Reginald Williams, who is an author and writer as well, and myself and Gerard, that were the three of us working together on this. And we self-published this book by April. So like I finished writing the book between October 1st to December 29th. I wrote the entire book. I rewrote everything. We went week by week, chapter by chapter. And by April, it took a little bit on the self-publishing side to get it out the door. But it was truly a good practice for me to understand the ins and outs of editing, copy editing, working with a publishing company, working with a designer for designs on the covers and everything like that. So to me, sometimes we look at life and we say like, wow, this is like a bad thing that happened, right? Like walking away from a space, but actually it was redirection. Like it opened me up, it freed me up to do things that I naturally probably wouldn't have done in that calendar year if I didn't get freed up from that other space I was in. And in my opinion, like, hey, like it's a blessing. I'm grateful that they did, but I'm also grateful that they, unleashed me and unlocked me from my creative freedom. Like I was able to create create freedom for myself, create this amazing legacy book and project for Gerard and his family. And if it wasn't for that, hey, who knows? This thing might be sitting still in a Word document on his computer. And I'm just glad I was able to get that out the door. So that was like the beginning part of my 2021. Like that was.
I just want to take a moment to like, you dropped so many like insights, and we're only 8 minutes into it, and most of them are great clips. I love the idea of this rejection to redirection, and where you come to that through that reflection, and just by being open to it, the fact that within 48 hours, you're like, oh, what's gonna happen? And the universe went, oh, hey, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna be willing to take it. And you took it and you ran with it, right? Like, and you started to put your full attention into all of what you cultivated over these last 20 plus years through your friendships, through your knowledge, through your skills, and just went, I love all of this. What a story. I mean, and that's just the first 48 hours.
That's the first 48 hours. That's like the first quarter, 2 quarters of my 2021. But it's like, here I am, right? I've been working in a corporate space for 20 plus years. And when you think about that, it's just like rinse and repeat, corporate ladder, all the politics, all the different things we're used to. And I was conditioned, like that was what we're supposed to do when you get out of college. That's what you're supposed to do in terms of earning a living. And there's other avenues. These avenues existed before 2020. For everybody that's like watching this, it's like, like this is what you do after 20. No, you could have done this way before 2020, and that's a whole nother story in itself. But I look at it as like you got to look at life and just say like, what do you want your life to be, right? Do you want to have that happiness now, or do you want to just wait for it and assume you're going to have that happiness later? And that's a big mistake.
What's been like living in the happiness now choices?
I could tell you 2021 provided me with clarity. It provided me with clarity with regards to who was grateful for me, who really valued me, as I said earlier, but also just being able to spend more time with my family, my parents. Like they needed me in 2021 for many reasons, within the things of the world we're living right now with like COVID and everything. But just being present, I feel like I wouldn't have been able to be as present for them if I had that 9-to-5 job. And they needed me. And it was just a timing thing. Look at Gerard's situation. I look at being able to have that flexibility in my schedule to control what I want to do. Like I was so segmented to like, hey, these are your calendar meetings for the day. And here are the impromptu meetings that you have. And you have no control over that. At the end of the day, it's like you are hired to do a job for a company and you have to own it from an accountability standpoint. And from my narrative, it was just like, this gave me the freedom to understand and be self-aware of silence, to be self-aware of the people around me and realizing, hey, like just because I'm free doesn't mean they should be free. And that was like an interesting narrative to understand. It's just, you start realizing when you have so much freedom in your life to do things on your terms, you're like, well, where is this person? Well, this person's working. Where is this person? Well, he's taking his kids to karate class. Like you start to realize and get humbled and sort of say, everything's not on your terms either. Like everything doesn't run at your pace. You have to understand the balance of how do I make time for people? How do they make time for me based on their schedule and finding that dance and that nuance of that. So I tell people that anyone that enters this space, it gets dark quick if you're not able to see returns, or is sort of, there's definitely a patience game, but like it can get dark real quick, in terms of like doubting yourself and understanding your worth and understanding, is this the right choice? But then I look forward into like the spring and summer, and some other things happen for me. Like there's something called Open Forum. It's the special community. I want to let you explain it, Gene, because this is
like, you know what? Let's let you. I'm going to turn the tables back on you a little bit as somebody who comes to it and enjoys it. And Drew as well was on a couple weeks ago. We had an episode with all the mainstays of Open Forum, and Drew's one of them. So why don't you share a little bit about like what Open Forum has meant to you? For, I'm going to hedge a little bit towards that darkness component of. How does Open Forum affect or make an impact in your life?
Sure. So Open Forum is this amazing tribe. We call ourselves a tribe, a community, a family of individuals that are entrepreneurs. There's a poet, Rawl. There's writers like myself, Licky, public speakers. There's life coaches, nutritionists, in terms of like health and wellness coaches. There's everything imaginable that you would want, in terms of people that actually love to be around other people, right? Like, so like you think about your corporate space and you sort of say it was ultra competitive, and it was like, who's going to get the higher ranking in terms of title and who's the loudest voice in the room. This is a group that is meeting every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And we talk about everything. And we've talked about anything from challenges, obstacles. We've got into the political talks. We've got into, sci-fi talks. We've got into everything imaginable that you wouldn't even imagine, but it's not even scripted. So there is no agenda. You walk into these things and we just sort of see what's going on in our minds to close out the week. And it's a beautiful close, because you could have a crazy week personally and professionally. This is that safe haven. This is that brave space, as Gina said to us. This is that brave space that you walk into, and these are the people that have your back. These are the sounding board individuals that can solution a problem if you have something that you just can't figure out and you're stuck in your head. To me, it's an amazing, amazing space that I needed when I entered this journey in 2021, because I had less social interaction on a professional level. And while the personal level was always around me, I was missing the engagement around conversations around professional level things, but also just deep thoughts and perspectives around a lot of the content that you see us post on LinkedIn and social media. Finding like-minded people that get us and get where we're coming from, it means a lot, because that your content and your voice is resonating with them. And to me, we're not afraid to challenge each other. In that room, like there's people that are more introverted like me, and they'll talk less. And there's people that are going to be outspoken, but there is a great balance in that room in terms of like, we'll call you out on your stuff. Like if you're basically playing it safe or playing it conservative, we're not afraid to call you out on what you're trying to do. And I've seen everyone in that room push each other to higher levels. And it's a beautiful thing. So it's a beautiful space when you can say every week, I'm looking forward to this meeting. And I don't even want to call it a meeting. It's an event. It's a session.
It's communion, whatever you want.
Whatever you want to call it.
Gathering.
It is the anti-meeting. It is truly like a union of amazing people that, hey, my week wouldn't be complete without it. And Gene invited me to this open forum, and I just said, hey, you think I would fit in? Like, I don't know if this is my type of thing. Like, it's a bunch of guys that
dirty shirt you fit in.
And I just said, hey, let me give it a try. And I joined in the summer, and I never looked back. Like I said, I'm grateful for everybody that's a part of that group for in terms of the tribe from Open Forum. They know who they are. We chat every day and LinkedIn and the private message that you have set up for us, and love all of them for sure.
100%. Yeah, I'm glad that you accepted the invitation and needed just very little prodding to get in there and to be part of it, right? Like, and that goes about. I think that ties back to where we were before we converted into Open Forum. Here is talking about this darkness around being like charting your own path, because it is super dark and it is super lonely, and no need to like put a nice little bow on it. It sucks.
Yeah.
It fucking sucks sometimes. It truly does. And it is a grind for all the wrong reasons sometimes. But it also needs to be, right? You talk about like rejection through reflection became redirection. While as well, like this loneliness is like this concept of like, when you're charting your own path, you're looking to go find your own gems. Well, you're not going to go to a pile of already cut and polished gems. Those aren't yours. You have to go mine your own, which means you have to get into the dirt. You have to dig, and you have to process, and you have to figure out how to go find the ones that you need. And that can be a long, hard exploration. And there's also a buttload of meaning and experience that comes with it. It's that toll that has to be paid. Like, you have to pay the toll. I can't remember who I'm quoting this from, so if that famous person is watching this, hey, I heard you. But like, success the toll has to be paid every single day for success. When you wake up, it's rent. I think it's Roy Vaden that talks about this. So when you wake up and you get going, you got to pay your rent. You got to pay the mortgage for your success.
Yes. And
it demands it, and you can choose to defer it, but you just have a bigger bill at the end of the day. So, and when you talk about going through this dark part, that's part of it. But being able to find things like Open Forum and finding groups of people, masterminds, and just like-minded people that are willing to share what's going on, I think it's important. It's a big part of like why the opening of this show is like we pull the curtain back on all the bumps first and then the triumphs, because we got to make sharing those bumps and those lonelinesses, like, I don't know, maybe make that as sexy as entrepreneurship is. Like, that is the first half of the book, and you got to read the first half of the book, or else the next half makes no sense.
I agree. Like, if you can't appreciate the struggle, like, the success is going to be like very bland, in my opinion. I look at like the things that we talk about, that darkness. Those are the things we don't see on LinkedIn. Those are the things we don't publicize on Instagram or TikTok. But it's real. Like I feel like everything we go through in life is part of like the details that happened in the past, and is part of our life choices that we make. And I always tell people, like, life is not determined by what you want. Life is determined by the choices you make. And I made the choice of taking this leap of faith. I knew it was going to be scary. I knew it was going to be unpredictable, but it was probably the best decision I ever made to date, let's just say. And got to leave something open, right, for 2022 and beyond. But like, it was just everything I needed at that moment in time, because I was so used to the traditional 26 years of working in corporate and the predictable things that were happening. And I just got tired of chasing the predictable. I looked at it as, okay, what else can I do that I can share with the world that's part of my creativity? And throughout the year, you probably saw sprinkles of my Monday reflections. I was dropping some audio Monday reflections. I did some written Monday reflections. Um, I produced some apparel with the Beyond the Legacy hoodie and some other things. But around springtime, just before the summer, I started working on something special that was the Beyond the Legacy journal. And you got to ask yourself, well, where does that come from? Like, where does that creation come from? That's been part of my journey. Like, I created this LLC in 2017, and there's a close friend of mine. His name is Ron. He lives in North Carolina. There's a longer story about how Ron and I met, but we're brothers. We actually got to hang out for almost half a day in New Jersey recently over the summer. And it started with him. In 2017, when I created Beyond the Legacy, he says, Drew, do me a favor, catalog, write notes, get a journal, do something, capture all the details, all the conversations, all the moments of triumph and adversity related to Beyond the Legacy. Think about it. The conversation with your attorney, the conversation with your CPA, the rejection, the like, you're crazy for creating this thing. Capture all those things. He says, do me a favor. If you could get it on video, it's even better, right? Well, I didn't get it on video, but I was capturing those notes. And fast forward, you look at life and what we went through in 2020 and beyond, everyone became a little more self-reflective and started rethinking about their purpose and what they want to do in life. And then after 2020 into 2021, I just said to myself, I got a lot going on in terms of this 2021 journey. And I've been capturing all these conversations where I've been at dark moments or dark times. And I'm like picking up the phone and I'm talking to my friend Teresa, or I'm talking to my best friend, Ed Boyce, who's like there for me at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, or whenever we need to chop it up. But like, I've known him since the 5th grade, and he's one of those guys that I call a brother, because through good times and bad, he knows everything that's going on in my life. But it's just all these different people, all these different conversations I had, all the different forms of rejection, all the different things that I created, all the things that I'm grateful for. I was just capturing all these things. And eventually it came a point where one of my friends, her name is Mariah, lives out in New Jersey, and we're talking on the phone one night, and she was telling me about a journal she bought on Amazon. And in my mind, I'm like, hoodie, and I was prioritizing all these other things. I just said, yeah, that's something on my list I want to do. And she was like, oh, I bought one for myself and my boyfriend, and I paid like $40 for it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, there's a market for this. I know I see it all the time on ads on Facebook and Instagram, but it was deeper than that. I just looked at it as that conversation with Mariah made me say, maybe this conversation is happening for a reason. She's reminding me and nudging me like, hey, like, you got something that's in your brain here, create it, make it a reality. And from the minute I hung up the phone, I'm a night owl. I was like typing away things and taking some of the things I was already doing. And I created this journal, and I was able to work with some amazing people on this project. My amazing friend, Lauren Freestone, who's editor, works for a publishing company. I was working with my friend Karen. I used to work with in a past space that is a tremendous writer, and she's an analyst, and she does amazing things from a consultant level. I work with a publishing company, so shout out to Angela and Nate for helping me with the project and getting it off the ground and designs and seeing it all the way through. But uh, when I got frustrated, there came a point where I got all the things I wanted to do, and I started creating this mock-up. And I hit a wall with regards to who I was going to work with on this in terms of like publishing and self-publishing. I definitely want to give a shout out to Reginald Williams, who, ironically, I was working with on Gerard's book. So it's like, don't forget about these relationships that are in your life, because I always tell people all the time, look around you. Take a moment and pause and look around you. If you're stuck on something, there's always people that surround you that can help you see it from a different lens, help you navigate through these challenges. And Reginald had a conversation with me one night. And he said, Drew, like, what are you looking to do? And I told him everything I was looking to do. I told him how I was talking to certain people and different publishing companies. It just wasn't working out. And I said, does it end here? Like, this idea I have as a draft end right here? He goes, no, no, no. He says, work with this company. And he referred me to this company he works with. And that's where I met Angela and Nate. And they work with me to get this off the ground. And if it wasn't for that conversation at like 12:30 at night on a given weekday, who knows? I could have just, I don't think I would have gave up. You know me, I wouldn't have gave up, but it just would have been, I was defeated. I was just sort of saying, I put all this work into this mock-up and numbers weren't looking right in terms of trying to get this off the ground. But then that single conversation with Reggie turned everything around for me. And then from there, it was just steamrolling. And then by, I would say, summertime into the fall, I started working with an amazing videographer and editor by the name of Zach. He's out in the state of Washington, so shout out to Zach and Daniela. Daniela was the model for my commercial for the Beyond the Legacy Journal. So thank you both for all the things that you do for me behind the scenes. I'm grateful for you both. But we were able to create this journal. I mean, I have it right here. It is on my website. It is the Beyond Legacy, a journal of personal impact. And it's on beyondthelegacy.com. It's in the shop. But the difference with this journal is it's not your traditional day 1, day 2 to day 365 journal. Right. It is broken into themes. It's broken into sections and it's tabbed. So like, it's not the type of thing you have to log daily. You know, I was telling people like, well, how do I start? Go to each section. In each section, I have a narrative that explains what each section is and what type of captures you want to have in there. And, you know, something from words to live by. That could be something as quotes that you love from movies, quotes that you picked up from family and friends, quotes that you have come from public figures. That's an easy one. There's a ton of them. We post them on Instagram all the time, right? So like capture your favorite quotes. Sometimes I'm watching a movie and I'm like, that's a good line. And you jot it in your notepad. Well, eventually transcribe that into your words to live by. You look at something like who I'm grateful for. That's a straightforward one that you and I, G, know and live by in terms of that's a mantra. But it's who you're grateful for. You could say my parents, but you don't have to say your parents 365 times. You're going to note your parents as who you're grateful for. And you're going to note my friend Ed Boyce, who I'm grateful for. And then you can explain why, you know, in terms of why or what resonated with you maybe in that moment that you're writing this name down. But there's also things like overcoming adversity. You know, it's understanding those moments, those blockers, those challenges, and saying, who was there for me when I was in my darkest moments? Who supported you? What was that advice like? And how did you take it and apply to your life? And then what did you learn from this experience in terms of this moment of adversity? Because if you don't learn from it, it's just going to repeat like a revolving door. It's going to repeat again. So understanding those types of things. And I always say game-changing conversations is one of my favorites. Because think about all the late night conversations or the random conversation with someone in line at the grocery store, or you just never know what that's going to lead to.
Yeah, and you get that aha moment. You're like, oh, I can't unsee this now. Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Like you never know what gems they're going to drop on you or how you're going to impact their day. Or you could be the topic of conversation at dinner at their house and you have no clue. But you might have made that much of an impression on them, or you might even keep in touch and do something in the future together. But it's all those details, I would say. It's the details that happen in our lives that are the puzzle pieces to our future and the present. So like I look at it as if you pay attention to the details, you'll understand why you are where you are today. If you're not, you're gonna be like, I wonder why. I guess it makes sense. I guess I got lucky. No, you didn't get lucky. There's things that happen that if you look at this journal, it's like, it's me taking that journey and writing and helping be a part as an editor for that book for Gerard and working with someone like Reggie that eventually was that one person that I had to reach out to help get this off the ground. It's that single conversation with Mariah that allowed me to say, you know what, Drew, like get your stuff together and like do this. Like stop procrastinating and like holding this into the, you know, as like a 2022 project. No, make this a reality for 2021. Because while I was a part of that amazing legacy project, like this was the first thing I published as an author, as a writer for myself. And I didn't know what I would ever publish in my life. And this is something that's near and dear to me. And I feel like there's other branches of things I want to do. And I've had a conversation with one of our open forum brothers and Mark, and we talked about something around 52 things you need to ask your parents and grandparents before it's too late. We've talked about, I've talked about, with friends, I want to do something for people that have lost loved ones. I want to do a grievance journal that's going to help not only someone that's lost someone in terms of how to help them grieve and help them, during that moment of, loss, but also how do we as family and friends support them? Because everyone's different, right? So like it's having a collaborative conversation with different people in my life that have lost parents, have lost siblings, have lost friends and family members and close people that they all have a different connection to. And how do we support them? And I think there's a space for mental health in terms of a journal around that. And who knows where this goes? But I just feel like there's going to be a series of things with Beyond the Legacy that I want to do from a journal standpoint and a creative standpoint. But I also feel like I have such a beautiful community with my Beyond the Legacy community, my family, my friends, and all the different athletes I know. Collaboration is going to be definitely part of it. So, if anyone is interested that's listening to this and wants to collaborate on any of the ideas that I just talked about, and you want to be a part of something special that's going to be a part of your legacy as well, reach out to me, DM me, PM me. You have my number, email me. Definitely
all down below to get in touch with him through Facebook.
You know how to find me. You always find me anyway. So you know how to find me. But definitely reach out because it's something that I'm grateful that it launched and published and successfully got out to the world on November 13th. And I specifically chose that date because that was the day that Gene and I did the podcast together in 2020. But it's also a lucky number for my family. But it's also, to me, significant because this was the perfect close to my 2021. I needed this to show that all the risk and all the different leaps of faith that I took was worth it. And the love I got from the community, a lot of the pre-sales and a lot of the sales since has been great. But I think the most important thing when I tell people and they say, well, how can I support you? I already bought a journal, or how can I help you? The answer is really just, it's not even about buying the journal. It's just about understanding who in your life could value or get value from the journal. Like there's more than enough, journals to go around, but it's just more, I want it to be in the hands of people that will actually make use of it and value it, not just to sit on a bookshelf and be like, well, I'll get around to it before the year's over and jot some things into it. So you can you can do a really custom share on Facebook or LinkedIn and just say, this is my experience from using this journal, and share it with your community. You never know. There could be just that one person. I'm not worried about volumes of people. That'd be great. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. It's great. I'm not going to
complain about that.
I would love that too. But you never know. It's just that one person in your community that's looking for something like this, and they don't know what's the right journal to choose. Like think about anyone that's a professional coach, anyone that's a life coach. And sometimes you have clients that say, I want to figure out a journal I can use. What is that right journal? And it's very subjective. My journal might not be the right thing for everybody. Some people might want to log things daily. My journal's not that journal, but it's definitely a journal for people that want to take that 12-month journey, be self-reflective of the details in their lives, and be able to sort of capture those memories and unplug. We're so used to being plugged into our phones and computers and everything. Like put your, unplug, sit on a bench, hang out, just do whatever you got to do. Get away from technology, open up this journal, and capture your 12-month journey.
I think there's a huge power in that reflect, and then that just brings a theme for you, Drew, keeps coming up, and I see the subtle plug to the coffee cup there. It looks great, by the way.
Everything is branded. Everywhere I go, people bust my chops and say, "You always have something with your brand on when you go out to go to the supermarket." I was at a food festival. They're like, "I always know how to find you because you're sorry, I always cheaply plug it.
You got to keep it close to your heart. You love it, and it's bringing it out. And you know what? This is putting all this beyond your legacy, right? Like this is that other side of your legacy.
I'm guilty.
But where I was going with this is this reflection component, right? Like we talked about that at the beginning, midway point, and now even with the journal, it's like that's like the underlying superpower is within a year's time to go back and be able to reflect on all of these things that have happened. And, thanks to your friend Ron, who told you to write that stuff down so that you could go back and reflect on it. Is like reflection that's a huge piece. And, I'll share my own piece because I used to post my gratitude statements online, and I don't anymore, but I keep them for myself. But I went through on Jan 1 and started reading my last 12 months of it. I'm just like, man, there were so many stories and things in there that I'd forgotten that even happened. And I remember just reading them and like getting filled with that same excitement again. Be like, if I hadn't written those down, they would have been lost for eternity. And like the power of like writing five simple things that I'm grateful for in a thought. That's it. Every day, it's less than 5 minutes worth. It doesn't take up a lot of time. It's my bookend. And if we want to talk about my bookends, happy to get into that at another point as well. But like, that's how I wrap my day up. And like, I never thought about going back and reading them before. I'll see them pop up on Facebook. And I'm always happy when I see the old ones pop up, but I haven't actually gone back and read the ones I've written with a pen and paper. And it's a pretty cool experience to go back through and just be like, oh, wow, there was some cool things were happening. And there was also like some shit that was going down too. And it's just like, hey, I got through all the good and the bad. High five, self. Boom, you got
Absolutely.
this. You want to take anything away, it's like, you got this. You're going to get through every good time and every bad time. And as Drew kind of shared earlier, it's like, we don't know the good and the bad without either of them. Like, we need those contrasts. We need to get through the dirty parts to appreciate the real, like the big successes. And like, there's meaning in it all.
Exactly. And I always say, don't be quick to judge bad, right? Sometimes we might say that something bad happens. You go, well, this happened. That's bad news. It could be the redirection to something else. Or it could be the thing that saves you from not having to fall victim to something else. So
exactly.
I always try to keep an open mind to all the things that are happening around me. And 2021 allowed me to like really just erase a lot of things from my life that were not essential anymore to me, and focus on the things that actually meant something to me and I valued. And, I definitely want to say too, like, I'm definitely want to say just outwardly, I definitely want to shout out to people that are going through some dark times right now or tough times. Like, there's friends and family that we know that fall a little bit into dark states and they're dealing with some things. And, I definitely want to let them know that although we don't always talk all the time or we don't get to connect all the time, they're always in my thoughts and prayers, and definitely thinking of them. And it's like, sometimes they get into their own mind of like judgment and, no, I feel guilty for reaching out, or it's been so long since I've heard from you. And I tell one of my friends the other day, it's like, yeah, we don't catch up all the time, but we spoke on the phone for like 3 hours, and that means something, right? So I learned in 2021 to just value the moment, value the now. Like, that was like a big theme for me. It's just, in the past, I would always focus too much on like hitting the fast forward button and trying to just map out everything as to how it should play out. And then 2021, I just said, what's today going to bring, with a big question mark, without trying to like psychoanalyze everything. And I was truly living in the present. And that's been a big awakening for me in terms of just understanding that, you know what, there's going to be tomorrow, God willing, you wake up and, just it can get done. You just can't overly stress over the things you can't control.
That's 100% true.
Yeah.
And even there's going to be things that you can control, and it's going to be painful. And that doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. It's just painful.
Yes.
And pain's actually a really good teacher if you listen to it.
Yes.
And I said that when we try to rush through it, we miss the lesson. And I don't know about you, Drew, but every time I rush through the pain, she comes back aggressively, aggressively. And it just kind of gets worse and worse. And still, like, You going to listen eventually? No? Okay. I'll see you on the next loop. We're going to be more painful the next time.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that whole idea of like getting rid of like, this isn't bad. This just is. This is a moment. There is meaning to it. Doesn't mean that you have to like it, but listen and take the perspectives from it. And for everybody that is struggling, this isn't about like obnoxious positivity, because like that's not going to help anybody either, right? Like getting into a mind state of trying to be, oh well, I'm thinking really horrible thoughts, I should just be positive. Be like, no, you're thinking horrible thoughts. Make sure you're getting the help if it's getting really bad, and reach out. And it's not about like puking positivity down your throat. Be like, you got to work through it. You got to go through it, and you will if you put the work in.
Amen. Yeah, I feel like too often, we're at a place where we just expect, like some people expect, instant gratification, right? And sometimes we let ego and pride get in the way of things and what we try to accomplish in life. And I personally feel like, we have to be humble. We have to take a step back, and we always hear the words compassion, empathy, and but it comes with actual action. Like, it's not just preaching these things. Like, there's so many people on Instagram that are preaching amazing quotes and resharing things, and it sounds great. And I remember one of my friends, and she's like, amazing person. She goes, Drew, like, when I look at some of these people that repost these things, it makes me feel less of myself. Like, it feels like I'm not accomplishing anything. I see successful entrepreneurs, I see successful influencers, I see successful public figures, and they look so amazing as to what they're doing on paper, on Instagram and TikTok and stuff. And I look at myself and just say, I can't even look at their content, even though it's amazing and positive. So like, you have to realize there is that segment of an audience that is lurking and may never engage with you. There's that audience that hates what you're doing, and there's no way you're going to turn that around. And I just sort of say, I love you guys too. It's cool. It's all good. Like, I can't really like be mad. Like, if at the end of the day, it's like, you're going to have people that embrace you and love you. You're going to have people that are going to challenge you. You're going to have people that are going to be jealous of you. But in the end, you have to know who you are. You have to know why you're here and your purpose and your intent. And that purpose and intent is always evolving. Like, we're always a work in progress. So like, never feel like Gene and Drew here is like, this is it. Just like bubble it up and you put it in a bottle, and like, this is the best you're going to get. Like, who knows? We have a conversation in 2023. We're like, what are we talking about in 2022?
Like those guys, but
doesn't make any sense.
Think about episode 11. That would put us 61 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Like, a lot has changed in 61 episodes of our life.
And I'm going to be honest with you, right? So like, in episode 11, I told you, I said, Jane, I'm going to do a podcast. I'm like, I love what you're doing. I'm going to do a podcast. Guess what? I didn't do a podcast. I did things a little differently. I interviewed some athletes I knew and some personal friends, and I have quite a few captures that I'm going to just keep sprinkling out on social, on YouTube and Instagram. But I didn't commit to the podcast. And I just said to myself, like, I would have loved to, but that wasn't my purpose at the time in terms of what I was supposed to do in 2021. And I'm not afraid to admit to that, because like, that was something I promised and I didn't deliver. But the book came up, the journal came up, some of the other things came up, and I look at it as, just because it seems like the right thing to do, and that's sort of one thing I turned away from in 2021. When I left that corporate space, people said, "Oh, you should do this. You should work with a nonprofit. You should work as a consultant doing this. I think you would thrive in doing this." They told me all these things, and I was like, yeah, I could probably achieve those things. I could probably excel at these things. But I told them, I don't love those things. And I was able to like take days and let it sink in and receive it. And I just said, no, that's not for me. And it's okay. Sometimes we push each other and say, you should do this. This is what you should do. Nah. Being able to say no is a powerful thing. Like, being able to just own it and be like, no, I'm sorry. Like, great idea, just not for me, or maybe not for me at this moment in time, because life is truly about timing.
I agree, 100% agree. Like, I wrote an article years ago called "The Bucket of Yes." I see Coach Randall's on here, so and he's read it, and that's how we got connected,
Nice.
actually. But it's all about like you only have so much capacity for yes, and it can be big yeses, little yeses. But once your bucket's full, you got to be like using no like a motherfucker, and it's important to use it. And I'm also realizing, Drew, we're at 45 minutes. We're like, where's this gonna go?
Oh boy.
I want to be respectful of your time, brother.
It's all good. I got a little overtime in me. It's okay.
Well, man, like this has been a great conversation as always. And let's give a couple shout outs about where people can find it. What are the details about the journal? And let's make sure everyone has an opportunity to reflect on their year in a different way than they have before.
Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. All my social channels have either link in bio or the actual bio to the website on like my Facebook. It's beyondthelegacy.com. You can find it in the shop
below in the notes too, and in the comments.
Exactly. It's like, just don't think about it for yourself. Think about for someone else as well. Like, think about someone you're grateful for. Think about someone in your life that would be impacted by this. And there's a featured article I wrote about it. There's a commercial. There's different things I have in terms of content and explanation of this journal and what's inside of it and a little more details. So to me, I would just tell people, if it's something that you think that would provide value to you in a 12-month journey, to you or someone else, I would say definitely check it out. But at the end of the day, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's part of like my Beyond Legacy community. Thank you to the Open Forum tribe. And thank you, Gene, for making this like, I don't know, like an annual thing we're going to have to do, I guess.
All right. Well, I'm always down for a conversation with you, Drew. So that's an easy yes.
I appreciate that.
We're going to have to celebrate your 2 journals and your next book when it comes out. So we'll prepare future us to celebrate that.
Absolutely. And hopefully in person, right? Like last time I saw you was in San Francisco. That's how long it's been.
That's been, and we were in wildly different careers then.
Totally different careers, like I said. But we got to make it a reality in the definitely near future for sure.
Well, before we let you go, I do have that one question. We're going to jump into my time machine. We're going to go back 10 years. You get to give yourself one piece of advice. What would that be?
Wow. So it definitely will change, from year to year if you were to ask me this question. But the answer is, be self-aware of your surroundings. Be self-aware of the people that surround you, because I think if I was to look back 10 years ago, I was way too optimistic and way too blind to the people, places, and things that surrounded me. And I think 10 years later, I'm more present with regards to the people that are grateful for me, the people that actually appreciate me, the people that actually, at the end of the day, understand that I'm going to have my good days and bad days, but they're going to support me. And I look at it as this, like, think how often people look at us and just sort of say, Gene's got nothing to worry about. He's all good. Like, nothing, no challenges. Gene lives an amazing life. He's got this podcast. He's like 72 episodes deep. He's got an amazing family. He's traveling. He's doing this. But we have our moments too. So I definitely want to share some love and shout outs to the people that were there for me in 2021 and prior, with regards to those conversations late at night, those conversations that I needed during moments of redirection and rejection and all the various things I experienced. So they know who they are. They're probably watching the replay or they're watching live and they're smiling. But I definitely want to say being self-aware of those people, because I would say 10 years ago, I was giving way too much of my energy to people, places, and things that were not grateful for me. And I think my advice is truly being self-aware of your surroundings and not being afraid to say no.
Love it. I love that. That's a great one to end on. So let's end it on the find one thing to bring some self-awareness to your environment and the people around you.
Absolutely.
Surround yourself with the good ones.
Yes.
And until next time, I'm Gene, and this is the LiveCast Conversation With, brought to you by Pealed Back. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Drew, thanks for being on the show.
All right, take care.